this new webinar by the Severalnines team. My name is Jean-Jérôme, and I'll be looking after you for the next hour or so. Thanks for joining us today. The topic is on ClusterControl, the latest release, 1.3, which just came out a couple of weeks ago, and which we want to introduce today via a few slides and also a live demo, which will take most of the session today, in fact. And I'm joined by my colleague Johan Andersson, who's our CTO and who's also the creator of ClusterControl. So it's great to have Johan present to us today. Just a few logistical details before we get started with the actual presentation. The session is being recorded, and we will make the recording available to you in the next couple of days, so you can watch the session again if you wish to do so at your own time, and you can review some of the information again once the information is online. You can contact us and ask questions throughout the next hour by using the question section of your control panel. And you can also contact us, of course, after the webinar at info@severalnines.com if you have any follow-up questions to what you're seeing today. And just before we get started with, and before I hand over to Johan, I wanted to ask all of you in the audience today a quick session to get us started. And this is to see whether you're already using ClusterControl or not. And if you are, maybe you can tell us also which version you're using, and if you're not, then that's also great to know, because it's always good to talk to people who are new to ClusterControl as well. So I'll just give this a few seconds for everyone to participate, and then I'll share the results of this poll. Thanks very much. Fantastic. I think we're at 100% participation. So thank you for providing your feedback here. I'm just going to close this now and share the results. Great. So it's a very different picture from this morning. So we had the same session this morning in the European time zone, where we had more of a split between ClusterControl users and people who are new to ClusterControl. But obviously today, right now, most of you are new to ClusterControl, which is actually really nice to see as well. So we're delighted to present ClusterControl to you today. And for those of you who already know ClusterControl, you'll get some good insight on what's new, what the latest features are, and what the latest UI looks like. And it's nice to see some of you on 1.3 already. So this is it's a nice picture. And unless you have any comments on that, Johan, then I would hand over to you for the presentation.
Thank you very much, JJ. No, let's kick it off. And it's good to see so many newcomers as well to this webinar here. So my name is Johan Andersson, and I will then present you 1.3.0, and that is our latest release. And first of all, I will start with going through what is a little bit ClusterControl, so that you that are new to this also get up to speed. We have a wide variety of customers in many different areas, and many of our customers are coming to us because we address a couple of important problems. We are actually taking care of the lifecycle management of your database infrastructure. So that is, we are helping you from the stage when you want to deploy a cluster, so that you can set it up and make sure it is functioning with best practice and state-of-the-art configuration files. And what you can do is actually that you can deploy a wide variety of clusters. You can, for example, deploy a Galera cluster. You can deploy a MySQL replication setup. You can deploy a MongoDB setup, and you can deploy Postgres. And also, what is quite new here today is also that you can deploy an MDB cluster. And also, if you already have MySQL servers, and for example, a Galera cluster already running, you can actually also import it into ClusterControl. And then we, of course, have a monitoring part. The monitoring part is very important to be able to spot problems and trends, right? And then we also have a management part where we are taking care of the day-to-day business of your database infrastructure. For example, around things such as backups and capacity planning, configuration management, etc. And on top of that, you also have the possibility to scale, right? So you can add nodes or reduce nodes. You can add, for example, if you have a Galera cluster, you could add an asynchronous replication slave to your cluster if you would like to use it for reporting, for example, or see your Galera cluster as a very highly available master system, right? Like in a master-slave MySQL replication setup. Right, and then let's go on here. So what there are many monitoring solutions out there, and the monitoring aspect is, as I said, very, very important. And we do a lot of data collection. We are collecting all the metrics that you are accustomed to. I mean, you are probably interested in knowing disk, RAM, CPU, memory usage. And then, of course, also if you are MongoDB, for example, you are interested in MongoDB status and what is going on in your MongoDB system, and the same for MySQL. So we are gathering a lot and sampling a lot of metrics from the databases that we are managing. And then, of course, we are then providing graphs and historic and keeping a history, so you can see trends and stuff like that, right? So where are the node going to be, and so on. It's possible to see. And then on top of that, we have alarms and notifications. So if the state of the cluster is not the expected state, then you will get an alarm or a notification. For example, if you are expected to run out of disk space, you will get an alarm that your disk space will run out in the future. But on top of that, we have built also a control and automation layer where we are then able to provision nodes to your cluster. And we can also do configuration management, which is making sure that the configuration is up to date on all nodes, and also checking that configuration parameters that we deem are very important, that they're actually set to the correct values. For example, in Galera, you might want to have the VSREP cluster addresses to be set in a certain way, and that is something that we are checking, for instance. Availability management is another important area. If a node fails, you want it to recover. So we always try to do an automatic recovery of a failed node. And then as well as if you have a cluster that fails, well, we also try to do automatic recovery of the cluster. Right. Then you can, of course, go fully manual as well. So you could do the availability management yourselves, reacting on the alarms and so on that we are sending out. Upgrade management is also another thing that is important, so that you can do upgrades of your nodes in the cluster. And then as well, the scaling component is also an important one, so that you can add capacity as you want, and you can also shrink the capacity when you don't need the capacity any longer. But on top of this, we have also built what is called ClusterControl domain-specific language, and it's a JavaScript language that you can write your own programs or automation programs in a JavaScript-like language then. And this language is then tightly integrated with ClusterControl, so you can read up values that we have sampled, and based on these values and historic things, we have you have also a lot of statistical functions within this language. So we can do, so in this it is possible to do forecasting. So it's actually possible to write JavaScript programs here to do auto-scaling, for example. So if, for example, CPU load and query load is projected to be X within a certain number of days, then we should add a node, right? So it's possible to write some pretty cool stuff. And we also use it for a lot of our internal advisors, and these advisors are checking a variety of things within your cluster. For example, we have security audit scripts that are checking that you don't have, in the MySQL case, for example, any users that don't have a password set, or if you have users that are allowed to access the cluster from any host. So these are like the basics of security, really. But we are checking these things and many more then, and you get then suggestions what you can do. And we're also, for example, projecting the disk space, how much disk space will be used in a couple of days forward, and you can then you will then get an alarm notification if that is exceeding a certain threshold. So that is a little bit about this domain specific language that we have, and I think it's really interesting. And if you have some feeling for JavaScript or like to write snippets, then I think give it a try. So essentially what ClusterControl is providing you with is like a database as a service. We have a hardware layer. We can run ClusterControl on kind of almost any hardware layer, as long as it is a Linux-based distribution in the bottom. And on top of that, you can use ClusterControl to create database clusters. And in the same view, you can create a MySQL replication setup, you can create a Galera setup, you can create a MongoDB replica set, you can create an NDB cluster, and you will have them all visible within the same UI. And then the monitoring aspects is the same for these types of clusters that we're managing. And automation and control layer are pretty much the same, I should say, for all types of clusters. It is possible to do, for example, backups. We are doing recovery. We are allowing you to do provisioning of nodes, etc., and to do scaling for all types of clusters that we are supporting, right? And on top of this, as I said, we have then a UI where you can see all the clusters that you have. And we also have a REST API, so it is possible to write, to basically program using a REST API to get data out of ClusterControl, right? So we have actually on our in our GitHub account, github.com/Severalnines, we have an example there where we have actually a repository there. Which you can integrate with Slack, so you can actually then chat with ClusterControl. So you can send it a message to take a backup, and you can query it for status and other things. So that is fully possible to do, and we have documentation as well on this API as well.